Greetings, citizens, and welcome to Unknown. I'm Jason McClellan. Thanks for hanging out with me. My guest today is Heidi Gadd. Heidi is an enthusiast of all things strange, as we all are at Rogue Planet. She's hosted radio shows focused on the UFO topic, but she recently announced that, having left the Phoenix airwaves, she's launching a new UFO project. I've been anxious to hear all about this new UFO project of yours, Heidi, and what better way to learn about it than in an interview, right? So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Well, I know that's what I'm excited to hear about, but we can talk about some other things first. So I guess we'll start at our beginning, and I was first introduced to you at what better fitting place than a UFO conference, or the International UFO Conference, right? You were. I don't remember if you were a volunteer the first year that I met you.
I was just kind of there I was doing a different radio show at the time.
Yeah.
It was called Aliens with Gas that morphed into the Mothership radio show. And, I know Alejandro like everyone else. And I was just there, just kind of like helping out where I could. And then the second year, this past year, 2018, I was there again. And this time I was, helping out a little more. I helped set up and stuff like that. But it's one of my favorite events ever is the International UFO Congress. I wish it could be every month, really.
That would be a little intense, but I understand where you're coming from. Yes, I sort of secretly wish that happened too. I guess before I actually met you, I knew of you because of the radio show that you were doing at the time, Aliens with Gas, and even prior to that. And it's because of our mutual acquaintance, Danny Torgerson, who is Arizona-based musician, zany fellow, and UFO enthusiast as well. So, and I know he was quite a regular on your various shows. So.
Yes, yeah, he is hilarious, and he is so into the subject, and also an incredible musician.
Absolutely.
Because I'm a musician myself, so I like to hang out with musicians that like, paranormal things.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's speaking to Danny's musical abilities. I was certainly impressed by his musical abilities, his insanely musical talent at the tender age of 14. That's the first time I saw Danny. First time I had seen him perform, and right away I knew that he was special, and probably the most insanely talented musician I'd ever met at 14. And watched him grow over the years and helped nurture his band, and we all became friends and remain friends to this day. So I had the pleasure of watching little Danny grow up and blossom into the musical mad genius that he is.
He's gonna love hearing that. He's a funny guy.
He really is, and I love his energy at the International UFO Congress. I mean, that I think is his happy place too. So.
Yeah, it's all of our happy places.
So before we get into hearing about your new endeavor, tell me a little bit about Aliens with Gas. How long did that go? What was that? And just kind of talk about that experience.
So that was a really great experience. Kevin was already doing his normal show. He's a pretty well-known radio personality, very talented at what he does. And I was going in one day to promote another show I was doing. It was at Tempe Center for the Arts with a taiko drummer. And he was like, "Hey, you're in Aliens. I always wanted to talk about that on a show." And so I was like, "Yeah, cool. Let's, talk about it." And so we did, and we hit it off. And then I just became a co-host with him on Aliens with Gas. And then we morphed that. We changed the name into the Mothership Radio Show. And, it was going really well. But then we ended up having some creative differences. So that's pretty much why I'm not doing that anymore. And I'd always wanted to do a show that was more visual, where I could get more into the video and just more into my weird of what I see in my head. Because like you see weird stuff in your head and you want to try to put it down. And I'm not very good at physically drawing, but I can manipulate digital media. So that's pretty much where I am today with this.
You're speaking my language. I totally understand that. That's how my brain works. And all right, yeah, jump right into it. You recently announced that you've got a new UFO project that's coming out soon. So go ahead and jump into it.
So it's called Aliens and Beyond. And the premise of the show is really education. Like, I want to grab the younger audience and get them involved in this entire scene, and even the older audience too. And what I'm really trying to do is put that educational factor on it, so people who maybe hear things and are like, I'm not really sure what they're talking about, but that sounds like really interesting. Because all of us that are into it, like when we're talking back and forth, we know what we're talking about. But somebody who doesn't know those things, they don't know what we're talking about. They don't know what definitions are of these, shortened versions of words we have and abbreviations for things. And so that's pretty much the route I'm going with this. And, because I love talking about weird stuff.
Of course. No, I think that's a really important thing to talk about, the educational aspect and the fact that many, people who give presentations at conferences about UFOs tend to forget that not everybody in the audience is somebody who studies UFOs. They're not familiar with all of the things that we might take for granted, or that we assume that everybody knows. Obviously, everybody knows who Travis Walton is. Just little things that seem like no-brainers to us. We feel like we're talking amongst our people. So we'll forget that there are people from the general public in audiences at conferences, and you can't always assume that everybody knows all of the little things that we talk about in every conversation that we have. So I agree with you, and that's where my passions lie, is like trying to step back and focusing on the general public and trying to do the education and ignite that spark and get people curious enough to then go and look into it further on their own.
Exactly, because it takes a village. And if we're going to get anywhere with this movement and just getting people on board with the information that we want from the powers that be that have it, we need everybody to really recognize what is going on, because there is something going on.
Right. So Aliens and Beyond, what's the general format of the show? How is it going to be delivered? Is it video? Is it audio? What is it?
So for the most part, it's going to be available as a YouTube channel.
Awesome.
And then I am going to be putting it up as a podcast.
Perfect.
Now, it's not going to be as cool as a podcast because you can't see all the weird stuff that I do with the video. But for those that, maybe don't want to watch a video, they can at least go to the podcast and listen,
I love that. And there's definitely, separate audiences for those things. And having the visual element on YouTube, and you've teased some of that visual element already, and I love it.
Thank you.
That's definitely something that, while you're doing the show, you also sort of mention here and there to encourage those just listening on the audio podcast to check out the video show, because they get the sense they're missing something.
Right. Yeah, because I'm going to have, my weird graphics and, maps and all kinds of just whatever pops in my head. Like, I equate it to, remember that old show, Ally McBeal, how she would be, I don't know if you ever saw it. She was a lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
but how she would have these scenarios play out
Right.
while she was like watching something.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's how I equate my life to.
That's
So now
perfect.
I'm just going to put it on video because I've discovered my love of the green screen. And oh my gosh, if I think anybody who has a creative side to them, if you can get a green screen and start experimenting with this stuff, you will just, you'll just be so excited and happy and you'll be able to get your stuff out, you know?
It's almost a dangerous, scary thought. A creative woman who's discovered the power of green screen.
Right?
I'm excited and terrified at the same time.
It's going to be fun.
That's so great. Now, on this show, do you have a co-host as well?
Yes, Mace Byers. And he and I have actually been friends for over 25 years, since I was born. And he's a musician. He's actually a bass player. He's a very well-known musician. He was in that band Grey Days, which was the lead singer from Linkin Park's first project here in Phoenix, Arizona. And he's done a lot. He actually was also in a band called The Zeros, and they wrote the original Howard Stern theme song. So I
That's
encourage
awesome.
everyone to go check that. He'll probably kill me for saying this. He's not in the room right now, but I definitely encourage everyone to go look up the original Howard Stern theme song because it's pretty comical.
That is super awesome.
It's like super 80s, and he was just a
Yes.
baby, and it's pretty good.
Oh, that's
But
fantastic.
so he's always been super into the whole subject, and we've been roommates like 5 times,
Mm,
and we would always be up late talking about weird stuff, and our roommates would be like, "You guys are so weird," and we're like, "Yeah, we know," and we just get along so well, and our chemistry is so natural that I was like, "Hey, man, let's do this," and he was like, "Yeah, let's do this. I want to do it." So
I was
we're
going to
doing
say,
it.
with that background in history, you must have great chemistry. So that's exciting right off the bat, knowing that you two have that.
Yeah, because it's not going to be like a bunch of stuffy people, like, oh, not that all shows are like that, but I just wanted to bring something really fun and fresh and exciting, really, so people just can get interested and understand that they can talk about this stuff and that they can ask questions too, is the other thing. Because a lot of times I get all these people that always message me or call me and ask me, like, for instance, Heidi, what is this whole UAP thing? What is a UAP? And I'm actually, I'll be doing a bit about that on this week's show. And it's just that whole element of people just not knowing. And even Mace wasn't aware of it,
Sure.
and he's into it. So it's all these things I'm just really excited to give to the people, really.
That's really cool. And you mentioned that he's a musician, you're a musician. Isn't it
Hmm.
fascinating how so many people interested in UFOs tend to be musicians?
Right. It's like a creative thing. Like, what
Right.
does that mean, Jason? Seriously.
Well, it's certainly been a topic that has been brought up so many times over the years. And, I being I don't call myself a musician. I'm a hobbyist, but I was certainly in the music industry in the business side for many years, and I love surrounding myself with musicians, and so that's being somebody who gravitates towards musicians has definitely paid strong attention to that and noticed that over the years as I've researched UFOs. And the answer that I've come up with that satisfies myself is that, like you mentioned, musicians are creative people, and I think the brain of creative people works a little differently and is always looking at the world and the things in the world differently and creatively, and sort of deconstructing them and wondering about other possibilities, and I think a big part of it for a lot of the people I've talked to also is traveling musicians. They spend more time on the road, so they have more free time to read books, to think about the larger things in life, to see things out their van window as they're traveling down the road, driving across America. Lots of reasons for why. It could be that they just have more time because they're living the starving artist life, but
Right. And that's so true about the traveling. I toured at one point with a musician called Saul Williams. He's a poet, slam poetry, actor. He puts out records. And, it'd be like there was this one night, I don't even remember what state we were in. I think it was like up north, like Montana or
Hmm.
Wyoming, somewhere driving through there. And I saw a UFO out the window, but
Mm.
everyone was asleep except the driver. And the driver was just like, I don't want to, like, shut up. I don't want to hear about it. I'm
Right.
like, dude, stop right now. I want to look. And,
Yeah.
so yeah, there's always that time. And when you're out there and you can see all the stars and the city lights aren't, right there to screw everything up. It's so awesome to realize that we are just like such a small part of this entire puzzle in this whole thing.
Yeah. You're primarily a violin player?
Yes, yeah, I'm a violinist, classically trained, and then I'm also an electric violinist.
Mm.
So I rig up a whole bunch of effects pedals, and it does not even sound like a violin sometimes. I always tell
That's rad.
everyone if you haven't heard something I've done, that when I do like my solo work,
Hmm.
it kind of sounds like a live horror film soundtrack.
Wow.
But I can I can play with rock bands, I can play metal, I've played hip hop, I've played Irish music, you name it, and I've done it. And that's one thing that we're bringing into the show too, is Mace and I are writing all of the music
Oh, that's so
for
cool.
this. So we're going to have, certain little jingles that we'll use for certain segments. And then we're just going to write music all the time. It's like a way for us to almost score a film every time we do this.
That is rad. That's a cool, unique element to the show.
Awesome. Thank you. We think so too. We're really happy to be able to do that. And ironically, us knowing each other for this long, we
Hmm.
have never written music together
Wow.
until just like the last 2 months. We're like, why haven't we been doing this the whole time?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It sounds like the perfect project for you guys.
Yeah, I think so too. And a lot of people are really excited about it. And so I just really hope I can deliver, honestly.
Thinking about your violin and your like awesome futuristic electric violin, it's the complete opposite of like what I was used to dealing with. I managed a New York performance organization, music performance organization in New York for 3 years, and it was early music, all period music, from Baroque, Renaissance, medieval, classical.
Oh.
So they played period instruments. So that is just like complete opposite. Thinking about electric instruments, that was like no, and these were like very much period instruments. I mean, a lot of the instruments were very old wood instruments. The trombones weren't even trombones; they were called sackbuts. I just like saying that because sackbut is a hilarious word. So,
Dude,
but
there's only a few times in your life you get to use that word in a sentence,
that's
man.
right. That's right. At least properly. You can find other
Right.
variations, I'm sure, but all sorts of bad early music jokes. But that's pretty cool. So tell me a little more about your origin into this whole field. Like,
So,
I know everybody has
right.
a interest in some way to the topic of UFOs and extraterrestrials. You already mentioned a sighting you had on tour, but what really got you interested into UFOs and extraterrestrials?
So when I was a young child, my family, we actually lived. So for those of you who are familiar with the Phoenix area, there's a mountain here called Superstition Mountains. And my family, my mom and dad were like super hippie. So we like lived in this weird little commune, like out by the base of the mountains. And I lived there until I was school age. And there were times where I would see stuff outside at night because I used to just be like allowed to like go and sit outside. I'd be like 3, 4, or 5 years old. And I know it like seems kind of like dangerous now that I'm talking about it, especially having a small child. And there is a lot of really odd things I saw. My parents are very open about the things that are different. You know, they weren't like, oh, you have to conform to this one way of thinking, you know, think outside the box. So, you know, there were times I'd see like really like heavy lights. And even at nighttime, I remember there were big lights coming in through our window. I don't know if I am an experiencer. I've talked about this before on the other show I was on. I really have no idea, but I have witnessed so many things over the years, and not just on the UFO side, but also on the paranormal side of ghosts and things like this. I've seen poltergeist activity. I've seen orbs. I've caught this stuff on film, and I've just always just, you know, seen these things and been interested in it. And when I was like 7, 8 years old, I would be going to the library and checking out all these books on the subject. My first ones were all on the UFO subject, and the librarian would be looking at me like, are you serious? You should be reading like the Redford, you know, the big, what was that dog's name? The big red.
Clifford.
Clifford. Yeah. She was
Clifford,
like,
the big red dog. Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, you should be reading this stuff and Dr. Seuss. And I'm like, well, I do, but I really want to, you know, read this stuff. And she just like shake her head at me and then give my parents like an even stranger look. And
Nice.
it's just something that's been inside of me for my entire life. And I've, you know, talked to people like you and all the other amounts of researchers out there. And I can't stop.
Yeah.
It's a strange addiction I have, but that's pretty much how I got into it. And, you know, my people growing up, just like everyone else who's in the field, we had all those instances where they were like, why are you looking into this? Like, what is going on with you? And they, you know, would kind of ridicule me a little bit here and there, but I got thick skin. So I'd just be like, whatever, you'll see one day.
And isn't it interesting more times than not that after that little bit of ridicule, that little bit of, you know, laughing stops, you find out that they're actually interested.
Right.
Like they have a story to share too.
Yeah. Why do people do that? Why can't they just be like, you know, normal and non-sarcastic?
It's the defense mechanism, you know. That's the stigma that still exists, you know, and we've grown up knowing that exists. So the natural response, the default response, is to laugh or joke about it until you find out somebody's taking it serious. They're not going to make fun of you. Then you can let your guard down.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I really want to promote with the show, too, that I'm doing. Aliens and Beyond. Aliens and Beyond. I don't even know why we came up with that name, but it just worked, so.
You know, it's very descriptive. You know what the show's about.
Exactly. Because that was the thing, is I was like, I'm not sure I want to definitely only talk about extraterrestrials. Yep. Because there's just, you know, I don't know if it's all related, you know? There's so much we don't know. Right.
And like you said, your interests go beyond just UFOs and extraterrestrials, as do mine, you know. We're fellow strangers, you know. We like the strange and we like exploring the strange, so I get it.
Yeah.
All right.
And there's more of us out there.
Oh yeah. No, it's a big community for sure.
Yeah.
So when does Aliens Beyond start? How do you have a plan for how frequent the show is going to come out?
So our goal is to do it once a week.
Okay.
Now,
that's ambitious.
That's a loose thing right now.
Sure.
Because we're actually filming our full episode today. So depending on how long it actually takes me to put the whole thing together, because I want it to be very pro.
Awesome.
It might be every other week at first. And then as we kind of get into the rhythm, we would love to do it every week because there's so much information out there and I have so much to talk about.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So that's what we're hoping, at least.
All right. Where can people go to watch and or listen to this fantastic show?
So it's real easy, everybody. It's Aliens and Beyond anywhere. So you could go to the YouTube channel, Aliens and Beyond. We've got a Facebook page. We've got Twitter. We've got Instagram. I got SoundCloud. I do have a website, but it has nothing up on it yet. Hopefully by the time this show airs, there'll be something up there. Because this project really just began about a week and a half ago.
Yeah, you're full steam ahead. That's awesome.
I am.
You don't mess around.
No, I don't.
I get it. You get the idea in your head and you want it out.
Yeah, it has to get out of here. Otherwise, it's going to like make me grow something weird on my face or something.
Right. No, I totally get that.
So, but yeah, so you guys can just find anywhere. I recommend going to the YouTube channel and subscribing, please.
And it sounds like that's going to be the preferred way to consume this show, being that the visuals sound so enticing.
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Well, Heidi, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I am so excited. You have no idea how much it's been bugging me. Not bugging me, but just like I've been so amped to talk to you about this because as soon as I saw you post about this, I go, uh-oh, that sounds awesome.
Thank you, man. That means a lot. I'm super excited.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. I'm happy to help in any way I can. And yeah, wishing you all the luck. I can't wait to become a big fan of this show.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. You're awesome.
Another big thank you to Heidi for hanging out today to tell us more about her new UFO project. I know I'm looking forward to seeing the end result. Well, June is rapidly approaching, and as we previously announced, Maureen Ellsbury and I will be hosting a couple panels at Denver Comic-Con again this year. One is about UFOs and pop culture, and the other is about government paranormal investigations. The schedule is just coming out now, so we'll have more specifics soon, but Denver Comic-Con takes place the weekend of June 15th. More information about the event as a whole is at denvercomiccon.com. For the millions of you who are huge fans of this show, have you checked out the Rogue Planet store yet? You can buy your very own unknown shirt. Just go to store.rogueplanet.tv and check out what we have available. And we're adding new stuff all the time. rogueplanet.tv is our website. That's where you'll find this show, as well as all sorts of other strange content. Unknown is available on Apple Podcasts and other usual podcast locations too. So if you like the show, subscribe and leave a review if you feel so inclined. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I'm Jason McClellan. Do me a favor, friends. Stay strange.